Hey everyone, welcome back to Gastromania. Ever since the viral egg fried rice video, many people have been asking me, why did you chop off the prawn heads? Well, the answer is that you can't fully release the flavour in the prawn heads from frying rice. Therefore, Uncle Lee has kept them for the day I make prawn noodles. Prawn noodles is a very unique and popular dish in Singapore and Malaysia. The tricky part lies in the broth. Let's get into this recipe. First, let's talk about the prawns. We will need about 500 grams of fresh prawns. I've removed the spine and eyes of the prawns. When choosing the prawns, there are a few things to take note. Fresh prawns should have their heads still firmly attached to the body. In the head, the color of the insides should not be too intensely red. The longer the prawn is kept, the darker the red inside the prawns become. Make sure that you choose the freshest possible prawns to make the most amazing bowl of prawn noodles. Prepare the prawns by removing its head. Use your hands to twist off its head. Don't be like Uncle Lee and use a knife to cut it off. I've got the pointy part of the prawn head cut off to make this safe. After pulling off its head, peel off the shell by going in between the prawn legs and pulling it apart and going one round around the prawn's body. If your prawn is fresh, the meat should not be sticking too much on its shell. Then, pull off the legs together with the shell. Keep all the heads and shell for making stock later on. After removing the head and shells, we will devein the prawns. Cut open the back of the prawns about 1 to 2 millimeters deep. The veins may not be obvious sometimes if there's no dirt. Use a toothpick or a fork to pull the veins out. Sometimes you might need to pull both sides of the meat to see it clearly. Some people don't do this for convenience, but in my opinion, it's cleaner and makes the prawn less earthy. After the back, you also have to remove the front. This time round, it's clearer to see the veins as it is dirtier at the front. Next, let's discuss the broth. There are actually two types of broth you can use, the pork ribs and the prawn head broth, or the chicken feet and anchovy broth if you cannot consume pork. I think both are equally good for consumption. I'll be using the pork rib broth and we will need about 250 grams of pork ribs. Choose the kind with softer bones and more meat. Blanch the pork ribs in boiling water for about 4 minutes. Next, we need sugarcane. Not the kind used for juicing, but rather the kind used for making desserts. In Chinese, this is called 猪蔗 instead of 甘蔗. It provides natural faint sweetness to the soup. We will have to give the two ends a good smash using the pestle or any hard object. This will make the sweetness release much faster when making the broth, making the flavour more nuanced. For the broth, we also have 60 grams of dried shrimp, 10 grams of white peppercorns and 20 grams of rock sugar. The dried shrimp is used as we do not have sufficient prawn heads for the broth. You can save up on the prawn heads from past cooking adventures for the day to make prawn noodles. But if you are unable to accumulate enough heads, then use dried shrimps to make up for the stock. The white peppercorns give depth to the broth while the rock sugar makes the broth sweeter, while at the same time it's used for making the color of the broth deeper after caramelizing. The last item and the crucial one is garlic. Use whole cloves and do not remove its skin. I'm using about 8 cloves, but you can add more if you love garlicky soups. Do not reduce the amount used. For supplementary ingredients, you can add bean sprouts. If possible, choose those that are shorter and thicker. These kinds are more crunchy after you blanch them, making each bite more textured. Be sure to remove the roots for a better eating experience. We can also add water morning glory or locally called kangkong. The kangkong makes the dish more aesthetic and more balanced. One of my favorite optional items that I'm adding is sliced fish cake. Lastly, you can also add shallots by frying them and making the broth more flavorful. Let's move on to cooking. Firstly, we want to start by adding the blanched pork ribs, white peppercorns, sugarcane and garlic to boiling water. These ingredients take some time to fully release its fragrance in the boiling water, so we boil them before frying other ingredients. While they boil, we start frying some shallots for the oil. This will make our soup more fragrant and add some crunch via the fried shallots. To make the crispy fried shallots, there's a trick I would like to share. Firstly, when you add the fried shallots, stir fry quickly at high heat. When the fried shallot starts turning translucent, lower the heat to medium. And once it shows signs of browning, Lower the heat to the lowest until all shallots have turned golden brown. Remove them quickly as they will continue cooking after you remove them from the heat and get browner. At this point, the fragrance of the shallots will be very strong and the oil will be very flavorful. Keep the oil for frying the prawn heads. Don't wash the pan. Add in extra oil if it's not enough. Add in 1 teaspoon of minced garlic and stir fry until fragrant. Once they turn fragrant, add in the prawn heads and stir fry until they turn orange. Once the prawn heads turn orange, add in the dried shrimps and fry them until they are fragrant. With less than 300 grams of prawn heads, don't expect there to be orange prawn oils to be forming. You will need to accumulate a substantial amount to have the orange prawn oils noticeable. Once both turn fragrant, we transfer them into the pot of boiling ingredients prepared earlier. One tip here is to deglaze the wok by using some of the broth liquid, as there is bound to be some garlic and bits of shrimp stuck on the surface. Pour the broth over the wok and give it a good swirl, and pour the liquid back into the pot of broth. Next, we caramelize the rock sugars until it turns nice and brown but not burnt. Once that happens, pour in a few ladles of soup into the wok. This will cause a lot of splattering because the wok has some oil. The best solution is to be quick and down a few more ladles into the wok and stop the splattering. Give the wok a good swirl and pour the broth back into the pot. At this point, we can start seasoning the broth. Add in about 2 tablespoons of ground white pepper. Adjust it according to your preference. Add in 1 teaspoon of chicken stock powder. This will make our broth more flavorful. Then, 2 tablespoons of fine salt. Adjust this according to your personal taste and preference. 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce for umami flavors. Let the stock simmer at low heat for about 40 minutes to fully release the flavors in the ingredients. At around the 30-minute mark, we can start to blanch our noodles and supplementary ingredients. First, in with the sprouts as they take longer to cook. Then, add the noodles after about 1 minute. The 2 ingredients will be ready in 1 minute's time. Blanch the kangkong when it's about time to serve the dish, as they will wilt very easily. Arrange the kangkong nicely over the blanched noodles. Once the broth is ready, pick up the pork ribs to be arranged nicely on other blanched ingredients. Remove all the prawn heads and sugar cane. Turn on high heat to heat up the broth. Add in the peeled prawns and blanch until they become cooked. This will only take about 3 minutes. If you overdo this, the prawns will become very rubbery in texture. Take out the blanched prawns and arrange nicely for serving. Once you are satisfied with the plating of the noodles, add the boiling broth over the noodles and other ingredients. Make sure that the broth is sufficient to cover the noodles. Serve the noodles and drizzle the prepared fried shallots and oil over the noodles. There, look at our completed prawn noodle soup in its glory. Time to dig in after about 1 hour of hard work in the kitchen. The broth is definitely worth the effort. We have come to the end of today's episode. I hope you have learned something from today's recipe. If you have any feedback or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I look through all comments and will reply you. And I'll catch you in the next episode.